episode is brought to you by A3, a CMMC cloud-based collaborative environment for an organization seeking certification, otherwise known as an OSC, to build CMMC packages and share with a marketplace of consultant RPOs and assessor C3PAOs. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of 123 CMMC. My name is Dana Mantilia, and I will be your host today. And our guest today is Joy Beland, who is a cybersecurity consultant. Welcome, Joy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about what you do?
You betcha. Thank you, Dana, and thanks so much for having me. I love what you're doing with the 123 CMMC videos. I think it's such an important service that you're providing to the community. So I'm a senior cybersecurity consultant. I work with Edwards Performance Solutions. We are all in at CMMC and with the ecosystem because we are a licensed partner publisher and we're developing the curriculum. We are a training provider and our first classes are coming out in the middle October timeframe. We are a RPO providing the consulting services and then the C3PAO as well. So we have 5 provisional assessors, 3 provisional instructors on our team. All of us are registered practitioners. We are just doing everything in CMMC. And so I'm really excited at the opportunity to share what I am looking at for some specifics on CMMC with you today and all of your watchers.
Fantastic. So today we're going to talk about awareness and training for the CMMC model, which a lot of people are probably wondering what they need to do with this. So let's hop into it. So what kind of awareness and training is included in the CMMC assessment?
So in the CMMC model, there are 3 practices up to level 3 that include some kind of awareness or training. And the first one is at level 2 with just the regular awareness and training. And so that's the basic security awareness training that we've all known and, you know, between you and I, loved quite a bit for many years. Then it moves into some specific role-based training for anyone that's performing a information security related duty. And that really is the impetus to make sure that their skills continue to improve because they are responsible for those InfoSec services to an organization. The third practice at level 3, it's really focused on insider threat training and incorporates a lot more for accounting for the sensitivity of the data at level 3. So those are the 3 main practices most organizations are going to be looking at if they are going to be going after a level 3 assessment for their organization.
Mm-hmm. All right. So then why is it, what's going on with level 1? No one needs to do anything at level 1. Start until level 2.
Yeah, we're in the same boat when it comes to this. In my mind, fundamental cybersecurity program at any organization is going to include security awareness training. So why in the world it's not at level 1, I don't know. You know, there's an old saying though, is that you can be compliant and still not be secure. Mm-hmm. But if you are secure, you pretty much are going to be checking all the boxes on compliancy. So I would invite any level 1 organization that is going after that level 1 assessment for CMMC to go ahead and incorporate security awareness at level 1 and not waiting until level 2. Mm-hmm. I think you and I both have strong feelings about that. I don't know why, with the availability of security training out there and the economic sense that it makes being so inexpensive compared to most other cybersecurity controls. Even the ability to impact your staff's knowledge around security, not just for the organization, but for their own livelihood, their own family, their own home computer networks, you know, being able to bring in security in any fundamental security program, CMMC or not, in my mind, is integral to just starting off on that security journey and helping the culture of the organization to understand the importance of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the culture is exactly where we need to start with. This has to be a thing that everybody is thinking about all the time. And I think this is what I hear most of the time is small business owners or medium business owners saying, I don't have anything that's that important that anybody would really want to, you know, try to attack. And that's very, very, very naive to think like that, because that's exactly what the hackers know. They think, well, they don't think they have anything, so they probably don't have very secure security measures in place. And so they're the ones that are now the big target. And as we know, bad things happen once this has already happened. And whether it be a ransomware attack or any kind of attack where there's a data breach, now you have reputational damage. So there's a lot of things that could go wrong. So everybody out there, no matter if you're in CMMC or not in CMMC, we should be doing something to change the culture in our organization and have some basic, even just basic stuff would be a good start for a security awareness training. So
it is. It's basic and it's easy. It's inexpensive. You know, getting something out there is just really important. Like, you know, number one, they should be watching all of your videos. That what you do behind identity and protection is super important, and that serves both the organization and the individuals. Number two, you can go to websites like SANS or the FCC, and there's so much information out there for you to be able to design a security awareness program. Even if you have 5 employees, grab those free resources and put something together for it, because it's so easy to do and so impactful.
Yeah, and I think that some of them say they just don't know where to start. So those are great places that you just rattled off that people could go take a look and get some kind of plan in place as to what they can do to get started on this.
You betcha.
All right, so you mentioned insider threat before, so let's talk a little bit more about that. What specifically is insider threat, and why do you think CMMC is choosing this kind of training requirement?
Well, first of all, I have to say insider threat to me is just so sexy. Like, my mind expands on it exponentially. I've been a huge student of the human element, that whole side of cybersecurity focused on human behavior, influencing that behavior, being able to change culture. And the next logical step when I was becoming so proficient in security awareness training was moving into insider threat, because it relies on that same fundamental knowledge and really focusing in on influencing human behavior. But in this regard, insider threat is going to expand into those employees and trusted third-party providers who are treated like employees. So it's not just your own staff, it's those 1099 people that come in week after week and are meeting with your own staff as if they're a staff member, right? A lot of them maybe even have their own key cards, access to the building, their own credentials with your email platform, whatever that is. But insider threat is going to be looking at the individuals who are intentionally causing harm in some way, shape, or form. So that's espionage, IT sabotage, intellectual property theft, fraud, right? And so those are the intentional nefarious activities that an employee or a trusted third-party member of the team might employ against your organization. It also encompasses unintentional. So it folds security awareness training right into that. So all of those accidental disclosures of information, somebody accidentally emails a spreadsheet of sensitive information to the wrong person, right? And then clicking on emails and phishing and all of those other types of security awareness training categories that we already cover. So insider threat encapsulates all of that, if you will. For me, the really interesting part of insider threat study is that there's this critical path that an employee starts to go down, and you can see signs of their behavior changing. Like, number one, they have a lot of personal predispositions, some character traits about them that you should be watching for in the original onboarding process and interview process, so that you know what you're looking for, that somebody maybe is not quite right? But then what folds on to that, the next level, is that they start to experience some stressors. Sometimes those stressors are things like being passed over for a promotion, reporting to a boss that they really don't like or don't have respect for, not getting a financial incentive that they were expecting. There's all of these stressors that you can identify. And what happens in the critical path is that they start to exhibit some behaviors that are showing that they are disgruntled in some form. And those concerning behaviors are things that if human resources is trained on it, if the supervisors, the business units are trained on it, if even their own coworkers, if all of the staff know, hey, it's kind of weird that not only has Jim been behaving really irrationally, his appearance is kind of unkempt or different from what it normally is. He's all of a sudden spending a lot of money that we are not quite understanding where that's coming from. Like, there's a lot of behaviors that they would be displaying. And if somebody is brave enough and like understands what they're looking for and is able to report it in a way that there's meaningful and consistent follow-up activity by the right people in the organization, then those types of risks can be mitigated. They can be addressed. And at the very least, you can get somebody out of a position of being able to handle sensitive data or cause further damage to the organization. In a lot of situations for insider threat, people already have left the organization and they're pissed off. You know, they've left. They feel that they've got this huge chip on their shoulders, and they set in place the means or and have the motivation before they left the company to cause some severe damage. So this is their retaliation that they're doing. And so whether that's espionage, fraud, IT sabotage, all of the different flavors of that, the difference is with CMMC, the reason it's being brought in at level 3 is that they've got access, quite potentially, to some really sensitive data. And this is the nation's defense that we're talking about. And, you know, there's a lot of bad actors and competing countries with the United States out there that are constantly looking for somebody that's displaying these signs. And, you know, if you reverse that whole mindset, a lot of the biggest experts in the fields of insider threat are folks that have been out there in the intelligence community for many years. And, you know, they've learned all of those things to look for in employees in other countries that they have been able to successfully turn to aid the United States in whatever that agenda was. So insider threat, like, it's a natural that's their specialty. That's what they're doing. So they're coming over from the intelligence community, and they're really helping American countries know, or American organizations know, what to watch for. And the training is really extraordinary. It's interesting. It's a lot of in-depth training available. So at level 3, it makes perfect sense to me. The insider threat training specifically is called into play, and I'm really excited to see it.
KTL is a Microsoft Gold partner and a CMMC registered provider organization. Their professional team members represent a variety of backgrounds and industries that will map out and guide you on your road to CMMC compliance. The process starts with a dedicated team of CMMC registered practitioners who understand your specific requirements and are here to help every step of the way. KTL Solutions, delivering tailored solutions so you get the most out of your technology. Visit them today at ktlsolutions.com.
I think it's important.
That's great. And, you know, the thing is that if you're not somebody that would commit these crimes, it's very hard to imagine that somebody would do that. So I think that's what part of the problem too, is that all of the regular employees that would not commit these crimes or, you know, do something fraudulent like this, you don't even think like that. So you're not thinking, well, maybe there's reason behind why they look disheveled and they're acting different and they're spending this money. And you're right, people need to be trained on these things, because exactly like you just said, there are probably signs that something is possibly going on. And if to the untrained eye who wouldn't do anything like this, it's just like, oh, I'm just having a couple of bad days, I guess, you know, that kind of thing.
Do you know, and the way that the organization responds when they start to see these indicators, that will set the tone for what happens next. A lot of organizations are woefully underprepared for handling something like that. And what they do is they shut that person down. You know, they don't have them feel heard. They're not giving them an avenue for at least feeling like, okay, well, we understand and we really hear you in what this complaint is, and being able to try to bring a positive response to it, as opposed to, you know, this really is, like, you have to swim in your own lane. You know, well, your supervisor is who they are, and, you know, they're not going to change. They've been with the organization for 20 years and you've been with us for 2. Like, however that response is, you're either going to help to mitigate any damage and bring hopefully a more positive influence into that employee's reality, or you're going to propel them to be continuing down that road of nefarious behavior. So, it's really important to understand all of those dynamics behind it. And at a very minimum, like you say, have it be on their radar that this is something that we need to really look for.
Yeah, that's great points. I'm sure there's going to be some people that watch this that never thought about any of that stuff. So thank you for that. So back to the regular old security awareness training. So can a company just have their employees watch a few videos and be able to check the box?
Well, it won't check the box for CMMC. That's the thing, is that for CMMC, because they bring it in at level 2, that means you have to have a policy saying this is the type of awareness training that we are providing for our employees, and that policy is going to have procedures tied to it. So determining what kind of awareness training is important for people that are handling FCI, and at that level, CUI as well. Who is administering the training? How are you making sure that the employees have participated in the training and doing a knowledge check that they've actually listened or learned something from it, not just, yeah, I watched the video. So it has to have some kind of a knowledge check included with it. But then you also want to make sure that whatever platform you're using at level 2, you have the ability to record who's participating in what, and then deploy some kind of a program behind it. So that means, what is the frequency of it? The policy has to state how frequently they're going to be trained, how you're measuring the success of that, and be able to show a assessor who comes in, yes, we have this kind of training assigned. We decided that kind of training was appropriate because of, so you're substantiating that in the policy, right? And we are measuring it in this way to make sure that it's effective. So it's not just, throw out some YouTube videos, even though at level 1, I would hope that they would be doing that, at least that anyways, right? But I think that at level 2 and 3, it's going to be most beneficial for an organization to use some kind of a training platform that offers a catalog of courses, and that you can assign that catalog of specific types of courses to different business units for their different interaction and how they might be handling any of that sensitive data. An example is that somebody in the accounting department would have different training, role-based training, than somebody that's on a manufacturing floor, because they handle financial information as opposed to, engineering drawings. And so you would want to just be able to identify for those different business units what would be the most effective.
And I also think too, it helps them actually absorb the information. If somebody it works in the machine shop is taking a course and they're mentioning accounting stuff, they're like, I don't even do this accounting stuff. Why do I have to watch this? But when it's the more relative it can be to their specific job functions, the better off it's going to be. So that's a very good point. It has to be job related.
100%. And you and I both know people learn differently. So if you're really going to be standing up a training program, taking the time to do that, why not take into consideration how people learn best? And oftentimes, I think that offering a few different ways of that learning is going to be way more impactful than just one type. So online training with a video, a pre-recorded video that has like, answer these 3 questions at the end of the segment. That is one way, but there are a lot of people that's like, oh, I'd rather have my teeth pulled from my head than have to sit through that. And so you might consider, well, can we gamify this in some way? How about accompanying it with newsletters that go out once a month, or on the company intranet homepage, we have news, cyber alert bulletins that people want to acknowledge that they've read before they access the company SharePoint site. In-person training, you and I both know that whether it's virtual or in-person live, having somebody that's instructing and being able to answer questions is way more engaging, and give them polls and make it a fun group activity. There's so many different modalities that you can navigate through as you do the security awareness training program. I think it's important to consider that, especially the interaction, having people interact. They are going to retain that information so much more at the end of the day than somebody that just sits there and watches a training video.
Yeah, or even worse, someone who just hands them like 25 pages of something to read about the security. I mean, I don't even think about that these days, but some if they even have something in place, they're doing that. So
yeah.
Okay, so what does the policy, process, and plan look like for these training requirements?
Well, the policy is going to state what the mission of the training program is, who's going to be accountable and responsible for carrying out that training program, if it's one person for the overall organization or one particular role, or is it a team of people? What is the cadence, the frequency of that training program going to be? How do you identify who needs what training? How is the training carried out? And then at level 3, when it comes to insider threat, you've got the planning added on top of that. So you've got the policy to identify, and there's 3 areas. Remember, we have the security awareness training. We have the role-based for InfoSec, which I'm going to circle back to in just a minute. And then we have the insider threat. So the policy is going to either be 3 separate policies, or it's going to incorporate all 3 of those areas in some way. And then the procedures for making sure that all 3 of those areas are met sufficiently. But then the planning, and the planning is where the gotcha is, I think, for a lot of those organizations, that they're not taking into consideration, like, what if the auditor or the assessor says, well, now I'm going to interview the CFO, and they're going to talk me through how they have allocated budgeting for this training for the next 3 years. And that may catch the CFO off guard. It may be that the business unit manager is responsible for submitting the budget to the CFO. So is that business unit manager entirely familiar with what the program is and how they have planned resourcing for that for the next 3 years? So there's so much more than just get the program stood up, have a policy on it, make sure our procedures are in place. That planning part of it is really critical for an assessor to be able to understand. Like, at the end of the day, they want to know, is your program mature enough that when I walk out the door and give you a pass on it, we have a level of certainty that that maturity is going to carry on for the next 3 years. You're not all of a sudden going to say, all right, let's cancel the subscription to whatever that platform is, and Joe, you go back to doing your normal duties. You don't have to do training right now. Like, they really want to know. This is baked into the culture, which is that terminology that you and I love so much.
That's a very good point. And see, the gotchas, that's what makes me very nervous, especially because we're going from self-assessment to now having a third party come in here and look at this stuff. And, maybe somebody wouldn't have thought about that. I don't think I would have thought about that the CFO is going to get interviewed on what's the, the layout or plan for setting aside funds for this over the next 3 years. But that's a good point, is the stuff that you have to think about. This isn't, we're closing the door, checking the box, and, oh, thank God he's gone, kind of thing. This is going to be, what are you doing for the next 3 years till we come back again? So that's a very good point. So I'm glad you said that with the gotchas. So with that, I think that we are pretty much getting to the end. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us? This was a lot of really good information.
Oh, thank you so much. 2 quick things. I think the first is that we didn't dive much into the security-based roles and the training for those individuals that are responsible for the information security duties. And the thing that I just want to throw in about that is that a lot of organizations, especially the smaller ones, are not actually having security-based roles within their own employees. They are relying on third-party vendors like managed service providers or managed security service providers to perform those security-related duties. So that third party will be called in to represent how those roles and ongoing training policies, procedures, and plans are implemented at that third-party provider to make sure that their performance of those security services on behalf of the OSC are being performed in the way that meets the assessor's criteria. So that's just one other gotcha that we could spend a whole much more time diving into that. I think it's really important, and I'm really happy to see that that's a part of level 2 requirements for CMMC. And the final thing I wanted to say is that I'm just going to throw this in. I'm so impressed with you. We had a conversation a long time ago about how can you get involved in CMMC and educating people. And, the conundrum we both sat there talking about is, how do you do that real quick, and the type of videos you were generating at the time. And you went for it. You educated yourself on CMMC. You used one of the training providers that we all know in the ecosystem. And then you came back with a model that you thought thought might work for doing these interviews. And I am really thrilled that you've embraced this the way that you have. And if I have a vote on you ever getting to be on Oprah Winfrey's show, I'm totally in for that. Good for you, Dana.
Thank you very much. And you were a big help when I first started looking at what is this CMMC thing, and that conversation that we had really helped kind of guide me on the path. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. We're all in this together, right?
Yes, exactly. It takes a village here. It does. So thank you very much, Joy, for your time and all your awesome information. I appreciate that. And thank you to everybody for listening and watching. And we hope to see you on the next episode. So stay tuned.
Thanks, Dana.
All right. Bye-bye. This episode is brought to you by A3, a CMMC cloud-based collaborative environment for an organization seeking certification, otherwise known as an OSC, to build CMMC packages and share with a marketplace of consultant RPOs and assessor C3PAOs.